Hello everyone, I'm Sarah of Rich Textures Crochet and welcome. Today we're going to learn how to crochet the Origins Beanie, which you can see here in front of you. Now this is a wonderfully textured crochet hat. The texture continues throughout the beanie and into the top. It can be worn without a pom-pom as I'm showing you here, or if you wish you may add one to the top also. I have also included with my hat a double thick fold up brim. Again, you can customize it if you wish not to have a fold up one. Then you can do that and just work a shorter. I'll explain it all later on in the video. So this is our Origins Beanie. It's sized to fit an adult head with a 20 to 22 inch circumference. It does have a little bit of room, so you might be able to go up to 23 before you can have to add some adjustments to it. It has a little bit of slouch to it when it is worn. For the pattern today, I'm going to be using a 6mm or a J10 crochet hook, as well as a little bit of the Wool-Ease Roving Origins yarn. There's about 299 yards per ball of yarn. You're not going to use the whole thing, probably only about 200 yards of it, maybe less depending on the brim style that you choose. You'll also want a copy of the free written instructions, which are found on richtexturescrochet.com, and I've linked that directly in the description of this video. So thank you so much for joining me. While you're here, I invite you to take a look around. Don't forget to subscribe. This channel is updated every single week with free crochet patterns and stitch tutorials such as this one. Now for our hat today, we're going to start by working the brim and then up through the top. The brim of our hat is going to be worked in rows. So we're going to start by making a slip knot and then by working a foundation chain. Now for my double thick brim that I fold up, I've chained 26 chains. That's what I'm going to chain here today. Now if you wish, you can make it a little bit thinner. If you don't want to fold it up, you may wish to chain 10, maybe 12 stitches. It's up to you. I've now chained 26 chains. For row 1 of your brim, you're going to begin by working a slip stitch into the second chain from your hook, and then slip stitch into each stitch all the way across. Now I do like to work in the back bumps of my chain stitches. This is really up to you. It's not going to matter too much in the end. Maybe how you slip stitch your seam together for the brim. But other than that, you can work your stitches into any loop of your foundation chain. Another note, if you wish, you don't have to work slip stitches. You can work single crochet or half double crochet if you wish. So slip stitch into each stitch all the way across. At the end of this row 1, you're going to have a total of 25 stitches. At the end of row 1, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Your chain 1 does not count as a stitch. Now for row 2, we're going to be working into the back loop only of our stitches. So looking at the top of your stitch, you have a loop that is closest to you and a loop that is furthest away. This loop that is furthest away is your back loop only. You're going to insert your hook under that loop. You're then going to work a slip stitch into the first stitch and then slip stitch into each stitch all the way across, always working into that back loop only. At the end of this row, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then repeat. We're going to work repeats of row 2 until our work from the beginning measures approximately 16 to 17 inches. Now, if you are going to change the size of your hat, you're simply going to want to work your brim to the size that you desire once it's stretched. So I'm working 16 to 17 inches when it's laid flat, and then when I stretch it out, it will fit comfortably around my head, sitting at about 20 to 22 inches. So at the end of your row 2, chain 1, turn your work, and once again slip stitch in the back loop only across. Work till you have 16 or 17 inches or the desired circumference, and then meet me back here. Now, once you have worked the brim of your hat so that you have 16 to 17 inches when it's not stretched, again, when you stretch it, because the slip stitch brim has quite a bit of stretch to it, it's going to fit comfortably around an adult head. You're then going to fold it over so that your two short ends meet. Make sure that it is not twisted. Then chain 1, and you're going to want to work a slip stitch seam just down the side of your hat. Now, if you worked into the back bumps as I did, you'll have a nice back loop for the first side, and then a back loop when you reach across to the other side. I'm going to insert my hook in those back loops only, and then slip stitch all the way across. This is going to bring the two sides of your hat brim together. So that you'll have a nice, beautiful, thick brim. All the way across. Make sure you're not skipping any stitches in between. Once again, you'll have 25 slip stitches. Once you come all the way across, leave your yarn attached and chain 1, and you're going to turn your work so that you're working around this rough edge of the brim. Now, if you've worked a shorter brim that you're not going to be folding up, you'll want to turn it so that it is right side out, but working one that we're folding up, we're going to leave it as is so that our right side is facing when we do fold it up at the end. Now, working with that wrong side facing for the fold up brim, we're going to work a round of half double crochet stitches around our rough edge. You're going to start by working 64 half double crochet stitches. All the way around, you'll want to space them out fairly evenly around the edge of your brim. If you are going to change the size of your hat, you can. I would work a multiple of 8 stitches for this first round. That's going to give you a nice even number to work in when we go to finish off our the top of our hat. So work a multiple of 8 stitches, or for the adult size you'll want to work 64 half double crochet stitches all the way around your brim. At the end of round 1, you're going to finish off your round by working a slip stitch, joining with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch, chain 1, and turn your work. Now for round 2, we're going to begin working some of our texture. And what you're going to do is you're going to begin by first working a slip stitch into that first stitch. You're then going to work a cluster stitch into the next. To work your cluster stitch, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, and draw through 2 loops. You're then going to insert your hook into the same stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, and draw through all 3 loops. That is your cluster stitch. You're then going to work a slip stitch into the next. You're going to repeat this all the way around. Cluster stitch into your next stitch, followed by a slip stitch into your next. All the way around until you come to the first stitch. You're going to finish off the round with a cluster stitch into your final stitch. When you come all the way around, you're going to work your cluster stitch into your final stitch, and then join with a slip stitch into the first stitch, which is a slip stitch. Chain 1 and turn your work. Now for round 3, we're going to single crochet into that first stitch, and then single crochet into each stitch all the way around, and that's including each slip stitch. You're just single crocheting into the top of that slip stitch. At the end of this round, you may wish to count your stitches one more time just to make sure you're not skipping any at the start or the end, and again you'll have a total of 64 stitches. Single crochet in each stitch all the way around, and then join with the slip stitch into the top of the first. At the end of round 3, join with a slip stitch into the top of your first single crochet, chain 1, and turn your work. Now for rounds 4 through to 11, we're going to repeat our rounds 2 and 3. So slip stitch into your first stitch, and then cluster stitch into your next. Repeat that around, and then work your round of single crochet stitches. So repeat rounds 2 and 3 for rounds 4 through to 11, and then meet me back here at the end of round 11. At the end of round 11, this is what your work is going to look like from your brim up to the end of round 11. You're then going to have joined with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. You can chain 1, turn your work, and we're going to work for round 12 one more round of cluster stitches. So slip stitch into that first stitch and then cluster into your next. Work one more round of your cluster stitches for round 12. At the end of round 12, join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch, chain 1, and turn. Now for round 13, we're going to begin working some of the decreases in our hat. So what we're going to do is we're going to work a single crochet in each of the first 6 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You're then going to work a single crochet 2 stitches together. You're going to repeat that all the way around. Single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. And then single crochet 2 together all the way around until you come to your first stitch. At the end of round 13, join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. You're going to have a total of 56 stitches at the end of your round 13. Chain 1, turn your work. We're now going to work another round of our cluster stitches. So slip stitch into the first stitch and cluster stitch into the next. Repeat that all the way around. Slip stitch into the next stitch and cluster stitch into the next, all the way around until you come back to the first stitch. Again, at the end of this round, you will continue to have 56 stitches. At the end of round 14, join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch, your first slip stitch, chain 1, and turn your work. Now for round 15, we're going to work a single crochet into each of the first 5 stitches. You're then going to work a single crochet 2 stitches together over the next 2 stitches. Repeat that all the way around, single crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. And then single crochet 2 stitches together. You're going to repeat this all the way around. When you come around to the first stitch, you'll join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. You'll have a total of 48 stitches. You're then going to go ahead and work round 16, which is your cluster stitch round. So slip stitch into the first stitch followed by cluster stitches. Then meet me back here at the end of round 16. At the end of round 16, chain 1 and turn your work. Now for round 17, you're going to work a single crochet into each of the first 4 stitches. And then single crochet 2 stitches together. Repeat that all the way around, single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. And single crochet 2 stitches together all the way around until you come to your first stitch. When you come to your first stitch, you're going to have a total of 40 stitches. And you're then going to join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch and then work round 18, which is your slip stitch and cluster stitch round. Meet me back here at the end of round 18. For round 19, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Single crochet into each of the first 3 stitches. and then single crochet 2 stitches together. You're going to repeat that all the way around, single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches, then single crochet 2 stitches together. Repeat this all the way around. When you come back to your first stitch, you're going to join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch, and at the end of this round you're going to have a total of 32 stitches. You can then go ahead and work round 20, which is your slip stitch cluster round, and meet me back here at the end. For round 21, chain 1 and turn your work. You're now going to work a single crochet into each of the first 2 stitches, and then a single crochet 2 stitches together. Repeat that all the way around, single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches, and single crochet 2 stitches together, all the way around until you come to your first stitch. When you come to the first stitch, join with a slip stitch into the top. At the end of round 21, you're going to have a total of 24 stitches. You can then chain 1, turn your work, and work round 22, which is your slip stitch and cluster stitch round. Meet me back here at the end of round 22. At the end of round 22, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. For round 23, we're going to single crochet into the first stitch and then single crochet 2 stitches together. Repeat that all the way around, single crochet into your next stitch and single crochet 2 stitches together, all the way around until you come to your first stitch. When you come to your first stitch, you're going to join with a slip stitch into the top. At the end of this round 23, you'll have a total of 16 stitches. You can chain 1, turn your work, and then work 1 round of cluster stitches and slip stitches for your round 24. At the end of round 24, join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch and chain 1, turn your work. Now for round 25, we're going to simply single crochet 2 stitches together all the way around. At the end of this round, you're going to have a total of 8 stitches. Once you've worked your 8 single crochet 2 together, join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch, and you can then fasten off, leaving a little bit of a long tail. You can see here that I do have a little bit of leftover yarn if you wish to make a pom-pom. It's up to you. You're then going to take your little bit of a long tail, weave it through your yarn needle, and you're going to close the top of your hat. So taking your yarn needle, you're simply going to weave it in and out through that top round of stitches all the way around. When you come back to your first stitch, I like to just tuck the needle into the inside of my hat, pull through, and you're going to pull the top of your hat closed. You can then go ahead and secure the top. Go ahead, weave in any ends. You can use this long tail to attach your pom-pom if you'd like, or you can simply trim it off, as I'm going to here in just a moment. You can then turn your hat right side out, fold up the brim of your hat, and that is your Origins beanie. So thank you so much for joining me. Once again, I invite you to subscribe if you happen to make the Origins beanie and share it on social media. Do be sure to tag Rich Textures Crochet. I always love to come by and admire your work. Until next time, happy crocheting. Bye.